Hi, the purpose of this screencast is just to review the components of this year's 2014-15 middle school group metric for our student learning objectives. This is for any staff member that does not get issued a state score for ELA or math grades 6 through 8. This will be our group metric for this coming school year, 2014-15. This evolved from last year's group metric for the middle school. Very little changes, mainly just the updated proficiency scores. But what I want to do is kind of quickly review the different components for those of you that are returning staff members, and more importantly for those of you that are new staff members, that you can look to see the specific details for each of the different categories. And really the most important piece of this is, after you've listened to this screencast prior to attending our opening faculty meeting, please email me or Abby specific questions about your either local assessment targets for this school year and or your student learning objectives, so we're better prepared to answer those specific questions that are case by case, course by course, teacher by teacher at the opening faculty meeting. But again, I think we have a pretty good handle on this as we've been working on this for the last couple of years. So again, New York State Learning Objective, Student Learning Objective District, Dryden District State, SLO Middle. Population, if we're going to do the group metric, is all grades 6 through 8 that are attending Dryden Middle School as of Bed's Day of the 2014-15 school year. The next one is the learning content. What is taught over the instructional period covered? Again, Common Core National State Standards is one of those things that there is in the informational text there. And that's exactly what we'd list here. We're going to list the SLO that is measuring the Common Core Learning Standards for ELA. And we can insert the exact performance indicators or ELA standards here in this box. Again, rationalize what we're covering during the course of the year. Internal interval of instructional time, that course of the year, September 2014, the start of the school year. April 2015 is the date of the New York State assessments, and that's our summative assessment for that learning content in this population of students. The next box is evidence. What specific assessments we use to measure this goal? This is kind of already spelled out with the group metric. That our pre-assessments are based on the scores on the English language arts assessments from the previous year. In other words, a 5th grader coming into 6th grade, what did they score in 5th grade? Summative will be this year's 2015 scores. So if we know what they came in at on the baseline from the previous grade level, where did they end up this year and where we were in terms of proficiency with those students? Again, because we're working with all students, it's important that we say we are going to offer the appropriate accommodations as legally required. We do a real good job, I believe, that in the middle school to get that set up in the spring. And obviously, just like local assessment targets, even though this really doesn't apply to regional scoring, but vested interest and outcomes, if teachers have vested interest, they are not allowed to score the summative assessments. But that's pretty well organized in regional scoring, and that does not occur. The next kind of topic here is baseline. Then we want to know where the starting point is. Again, easy for us as we look at where they were, but instead of looking at individual grade levels, we're going to look at where they were for grades 5 through 7. In other words, a student that was in 5th grade last year will be in 6th grade this year. A student in 7th grade will be in 8th grade. So we can look at how they did cohort-wise for 5-7 overall and compare that to how they do 6-8. And it's the same group of kids, and see if we have made a difference in the middle school collectively in that growth. Overall proficiency for this year, for 2014, that just came out, for 5-7 Dryden District ELA was 20%. If that's our baseline starting point of where the students are as they enter next year, our target then therefore would be where do we expect them to be based on our instructional period and the learning content delivered. We want to make sure that all students in the school take the ELA assessments in the middle school, and that when we talk specifically about what growth we'd like to see, we want a 1% growth, or that 21% of that collective 6-8 proficiency at the end of 2015 are meeting that on the ELA assessment, so 21%. That's the 1% growth, obviously. Once we have the growth target set, we then look at the heady band. And again, collectively, we talked about this last year a lot in the staff meeting, that we want to set our standard that 21, or that target 21%, is in the middle of the effective range. And if you do better than that, if we do better than that as a group collectively, because we all have a vested interest in ELA, with our students that we would have higher scores on the state score out of 20, and if they score less than that, then we would be down on the other end of that heady band. Rationale was basically trying to prepare our students to do well in subsequent grades, be college and career ready. And again, we focused a lot last year on this reading text closely for interpretation, so some of that we included this year. Again, I think we put a lot of thought into this from the previous year about why we're looking at cohort 5-7 growth and comparing that to 6-8. That was a good conversation in the auditorium. And we spent a lot of time talking about that we want to really focus on trying to push our growth and our collective efforts with our students so that we want to place our target of 21 in the middle of that effective range. Those were the two key points that we had discussion with last year. Everything else is very similar in retrospect to where we were in 2014 and 2015 with the adjustment of the proficiency scores. Again, just as a quick review, as you're starting to think about developing your student learning objectives for this year, your local assessment targets for this year, we're going to continue to give you more updates on some of the protocols and specifics that we're looking for. But this quick screencast, the goal was have a good idea what the group metric for the middle school SLO would be for this year. And more importantly, if you do have those questions, that we get those prior to the opening staff meeting so we can address those appropriately. Thank you for your attention and look forward to working with you on this process.